Welcome to
our channel.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are exploring a topic that almost everyone cares about, but few people truly understand: happiness.
That is a fascinating topic because everyone wants to be happy. But when we ask people what happiness actually means, the answers can be very different.
Some people might say happiness means having financial freedom. Others might say it means having strong relationships, good health, personal achievements, or simply feeling peaceful in everyday life.
Exactly. The interesting thing is that happiness is something everyone experiences, but it is also something that is difficult to define.
And perhaps that is why many people spend their entire lives searching for it.
Yes, people often think happiness is something they will finally achieve after reaching a certain goal.
For example, I will be happy when I get a better job.
Or I will be happy when I earn more money.
Or I will be happy when I achieve a certain level of success.
But psychology shows that happiness is often more complicated than that.
One of the biggest misunderstandings about happiness is the belief that it comes mainly from external achievements.
Right, of course, external factors matter. Having enough money, a safe environment, and good living conditions can influence happiness.
But after basic needs are met, more achievements do not always create more happiness.
Exactly. Many studies show that people often adapt to improvements in their lives.
Adapt.
Yes, humans are surprisingly good at getting used to new situations. Something that feels exciting at first can eventually become normal.
So a person may dream about a new lifestyle, but after achieving it, they may start looking for the next thing.
Exactly.
This is sometimes called the adaptation effect. It explains why people can experience a major improvement in life, but return to their previous level of happiness after some time.
Yes, imagine someone buys a new car. At first, they feel excited every time they drive it.
They enjoy the feeling of owning something new.
But after several months, the car becomes part of their normal life.
The excitement decreases.
Exactly.
So happiness based only on new achievements can be temporary.
Right.
This makes me think about the difference between pleasure and fulfillment.
That distinction is extremely important.
How would you explain the difference?
Pleasure is usually connected to immediate positive feelings. It is about enjoying a moment. Fulfillment is deeper. It comes from feeling that your life has meaning and that what you do is valuable.
So pleasure is more about feeling good now.
Yes.
And fulfillment is more about feeling your life is going in a meaningful direction.
Exactly.
For example, watching a funny movie can create pleasure.
Right.
But helping someone, learning a difficult skill, or working toward an important goal can create fulfillment.
Exactly. These experiences may not always be easy, but they can create a deeper sense of satisfaction.
That explains why some difficult experiences can still make people feel happy afterward.
Yes, think about completing a challenging project, running a marathon, or learning a new language. The process may involve frustration, but the achievement creates a strong feeling of growth.
That is interesting, because many people think happiness means avoiding difficulty.
Yes, but a meaningful life is not necessarily a life without problems.
In fact, challenges can sometimes make life more satisfying.
Exactly. Without challenges, people may lose opportunities to develop confidence and resilience.
So happiness is not always about making life easier.
It is often about becoming stronger and more capable of handling life.
Another interesting question is why some people seem happier, even when their situations are not perfect.
That is one of the biggest questions in happiness research.
Two people can experience similar circumstances, but have completely different levels of satisfaction.
Yes, one person may focus mainly on what is missing, while another person may appreciate what they already have.
So perspective plays a major role.
Absolutely.
This does not mean people should ignore real problems.
Of course not.
Being positive does not mean pretending everything is fine.
Exactly. Healthy happiness is not about denying difficulties. It is about developing the ability to find hope, meaning, and balance even when challenges exist.
That is a much more realistic view of happiness. I think another reason happiness is difficult is because people often compare their lives with others.
Yes, social comparison has become a major influence in modern life.
Especially with social media.
Exactly. People often see carefully selected images of other people's lives and compare them with their own everyday reality.
They see someone's success, but not the struggles behind it.
Right.
This creates an interesting situation where people may have good lives, but still feel unhappy because they believe others are doing better.
Exactly. Happiness is not only about what we have. It is also about how we evaluate what we have.
So learning how to appreciate our own journey becomes important.
Absolutely.
It seems that happiness is not a single emotion that appears when everything goes perfectly.
I agree. Happiness is more like a skill or a way of experiencing life.
A skill.
Yes, just like communication or physical health, our ability to experience happiness can be influenced by our habits, thoughts, and choices.
That is a very interesting idea.
And that is what we will explore next, whether happiness can actually be developed and practiced.
When we talk about happiness as a skill, it changes the way we look at our emotional life. Many people think happiness is something that happens to them. They believe that if the right things happen, getting a better career, meeting the right person, earning more money, or reaching a personal goal, happiness will naturally appear. But research into human behavior suggests that our daily habits and the way we interpret experiences play a much bigger role than many people realize.
I agree, and I think this is one reason why some people feel confused about happiness. They achieve things they once dreamed about, but the emotional reward does not last as long as they expected. The problem is not that the achievement has no value. The problem is that humans quickly adapt. We are designed to notice changes, but once something becomes familiar, our attention often moves toward the next challenge or desire.
That explains why people sometimes spend years working toward a goal, only to feel strangely empty after reaching it. They expected the achievement itself to completely transform their lives, but instead they discover that happiness requires something deeper than simply collecting accomplishments.
Yes, a successful career, financial stability, or personal achievements can certainly improve life, but they are only part of the picture. A person can have many external signs of success and still feel disconnected, lonely, or uncertain about their purpose. On the other hand, someone with a simpler lifestyle may experience a strong sense of satisfaction because their daily life matches their values.
This brings us to an important idea in happiness research: the difference between living according to external expectations and living according to personal values. Many people spend a lot of energy trying to achieve a version of success that they have inherited from society, family, or cultural expectations.
That is a very common experience. From a young age, many people receive messages about what a successful life should look like. They may hear that they need a certain job, a certain income, a certain lifestyle, or a certain social status. These goals are not necessarily wrong, but problems can appear when people pursue them without asking whether those goals are truly meaningful to them.
So someone can achieve what society considers successful, but still feel that something is missing.
Exactly, because achievement and fulfillment are not always the same thing. Achievement answers the question, what have I accomplished? Fulfillment answers a deeper question, why does this matter to me?
That second question seems much harder to answer.
It is, but it is also one of the most important questions people can explore.
Another factor that strongly influences happiness is relationships. Across many studies of human well-being, one message appears again and again. Meaningful relationships are one of the strongest predictors of life satisfaction.
That makes sense when we think about human nature. People are social beings. We are not designed to experience life completely alone. Even highly independent people usually need some form of connection, whether it comes from family, friendships, communities, or shared experiences.
What is interesting is that relationships are not valuable simply because we spend time with others. The quality of those connections matters much more than the number of people we know.
Absolutely. Someone can have hundreds of online connections and still feel lonely. Meanwhile, another person may have only a few close relationships but feel deeply supported and understood.
So happiness is not about being surrounded by as many people as possible.
Right, it is about having relationships where people can be honest, respected, and emotionally connected.
I think this explains why simple conversations can sometimes have such a powerful effect on our happiness. A meaningful conversation with someone who truly listens can change our entire emotional state.
Yes, feeling understood is one of the most basic human needs. When people feel that their thoughts and experiences matter to someone else, it creates a sense of belonging.
And belonging seems to be closely connected to happiness.
Very closely. Many people focus on personal achievement because achievement is visible. You can measure a promotion, a salary, or an award. But emotional connection is harder to measure, even though it can have an enormous impact on how people experience their lives.
Another interesting aspect of happiness is gratitude. People often hear the advice, be grateful, but sometimes they misunderstand what gratitude actually means.
Yes, gratitude is not about forcing yourself to ignore problems or pretending everything is perfect. It is about training your attention to notice what is valuable instead of only focusing on what is missing.
That is a subtle but important difference.
Exactly. Imagine two people facing the same situation. One person immediately focuses on everything that went wrong. The other person recognizes the difficulties but also notices the things that are still going well. Their circumstances may be identical, but their emotional experience can be completely different.
So gratitude changes the way we see our lives.
Yes, it changes our relationship with the present moment.
This idea is especially important today because modern society often encourages people to focus on what they do not have. Advertising, social media, and constant comparison can create the feeling that there is always something missing.
That is true. Many systems around us are designed to increase desire. Wanting improvement is not a bad thing, but if we always believe happiness exists somewhere in the future, we may forget to experience the present.
So there needs to be a balance between ambition and appreciation.
Exactly. A person can have goals while still appreciating where they are now. Growth and gratitude do not have to compete with each other.
I think this gives us a different definition of happiness. Maybe happiness is not about reaching a final destination where all problems disappear.
I would agree. Happiness is probably closer to a way of traveling through life. It is the ability to find meaning, connection, and appreciation while continuing to grow.
That is a much more realistic perspective.
And in the next part, we can explore something even more practical. What daily habits and behaviors actually help people build a happier life?
Now that we have discussed some of the deeper ideas behind happiness, such as meaning, relationships, and perspective, I think it is worth exploring something more practical. If happiness is influenced by our habits and choices, what are the things we can actually do every day to improve our sense of well-being?
That is the question many people are interested in because understanding happiness intellectually is one thing, but applying it to daily life is another. People often know what is good for them, but turning knowledge into consistent behavior requires intention and practice.
One habit that researchers often mention is physical activity. Many people think of exercise mainly as a way to improve physical health, but it also has a strong connection with emotional well-being.
Yes, physical movement affects the brain in many ways. It can improve mood, reduce stress, and create a greater sense of energy. What is interesting is that people often imagine they need to become extremely athletic to experience these benefits, but even simple activities like walking regularly can have a positive impact.
That is encouraging, because it means happiness-related habits do not always need to be complicated.
Exactly. Sometimes people make personal improvement harder than it needs to be because they search for dramatic changes. But small, consistent actions often create the strongest long-term results.
This idea of small actions reminds me of how people approach change in general. Many people want to completely transform their lives overnight. They create a perfect plan, feel motivated for a short period, and then struggle to maintain it.
Yes, the problem is that motivation naturally changes. Some days people feel inspired, and other days they do not. If a habit depends only on motivation, it becomes difficult to maintain.
So what works better?
Creating systems and routines. Instead of asking, "Do I feel motivated today?" a better question is, "How can I make this behavior easier to repeat?"
For example, someone who wants to read more books does not need to wait until they suddenly feel extremely motivated.
Right, they can create a simple routine. Reading 10 pages before bed, keeping a book nearby, or setting aside a specific time each day.
The action becomes part of their lifestyle instead of something they constantly have to force.
Exactly.
Another important habit connected to happiness is attention. What we pay attention to has a huge influence on how we experience life.
That is one of the most interesting aspects of human psychology. Our brains receive an enormous amount of information every day, but we cannot focus on everything. We have to choose what deserves our attention.
And those choices shape our emotional experience.
Yes, if someone constantly focuses on problems, comparisons, and things they lack, their world can start to feel negative even if many good things are happening.
While someone who regularly notices positive experiences may develop a different relationship with life.
Exactly.
This does not mean people should ignore problems or force themselves to be positive all the time.
That is an important distinction. Healthy happiness is not about pretending negative emotions do not exist. Everyone experiences disappointment, sadness, frustration, and fear.
So the goal is not to eliminate difficult emotions.
Right, the goal is to develop the ability to experience difficult emotions without allowing them to completely control our lives.
That sounds similar to emotional strength.
Yes, emotional strength means being able to face reality while still maintaining hope and direction.
Another factor that influences happiness is having a sense of progress. People often feel happier when they believe they are moving forward.
Absolutely, progress creates a feeling of purpose. It does not always need to be a major achievement. Small improvements can also create satisfaction.
For example, learning a few new words in a language every day.
Or improving a skill little by little.
Or becoming slightly healthier than you were last month.
Exactly.
The progress itself can become a source of happiness.
Yes, because humans naturally enjoy growth and development.
This is interesting because sometimes people focus only on the final result.
Right, they think happiness exists after success.
After getting the job.
After reaching the goal.
After becoming fluent.
But the journey itself can also create meaningful experiences.
So learning to appreciate the process becomes important.
Exactly.
I think another overlooked source of happiness is helping others. Many people assume happiness comes mainly from receiving things, but giving can also create a strong sense of satisfaction.
Yes, helping others creates connection and meaning. It reminds people that they are part of something larger than themselves.
And it does not always require a huge action.
Exactly. Small acts of kindness can have a meaningful effect. Listening to someone, offering support, sharing knowledge, or simply showing appreciation can improve both people's emotional states.
So happiness can sometimes come from contributing rather than collecting.
That is a very powerful way to describe it.
Another topic we should discuss is the relationship between happiness and technology. Technology has improved many parts of life, but it has also created new challenges.
Yes, digital tools can make life easier, but they can also affect attention, sleep, and social comparison.
Many people spend hours looking at other people's lives online.
And that can create unrealistic comparisons because people usually share highlights, not the complete reality.
So the problem is not technology itself.
Exactly, the issue is how we use it.
A healthy relationship with technology requires awareness. We need to decide whether technology is supporting our lives or controlling our attention.
That is an important question. A tool should help us achieve what matters to us, not constantly pull us away from the present moment.
Sometimes the happiest moments happen when people are fully engaged in real experiences.
Yes, having a conversation, enjoying nature, creating something, or spending time with people we care about can be deeply satisfying.
After discussing these habits, it seems happiness is built through repeated choices.
I agree, happiness is not usually created by one dramatic event. It is often the result of small decisions repeated over time.
The way we spend our mornings.
The way we treat our bodies.
The way we communicate with others.
The way we think about our experiences.
All of these small choices slowly shape our emotional lives. In the next part, we can explore one of the biggest questions about happiness. Why do some people remain positive during difficult times, and what can we learn from their mindset?
That is where resilience becomes important.
When people talk about happiness, they often imagine a person who has a comfortable life, few problems, and many positive experiences. But if we look more closely at the lives of genuinely happy people, we often discover something surprising. Many of them have experienced difficult periods. Their happiness does not come from avoiding challenges. It comes from learning how to respond to challenges.
That is one of the most important ideas in understanding happiness. A lot of people believe that a good life means a life without difficulties, but that expectation can create disappointment. Problems, uncertainty, and unexpected changes are normal parts of being human. The difference is not whether someone experiences hardship. The difference is how they interpret and handle those experiences.
So happiness is not the absence of problems.
Exactly. It is the ability to maintain a sense of meaning and direction even when problems exist.
That idea changes the way we think about difficult emotions. Instead of seeing sadness, fear, or frustration as signs that something is wrong with our lives, we can see them as natural responses to situations that matter.
Yes, emotions are information. They tell us something about our experiences, our needs, and our values. The goal is not to remove difficult emotions, but to understand them and respond wisely.
This brings us to the concept of resilience. People often describe resilient individuals as people who are strong, but I think resilience is more complicated than simply being strong.
I agree, resilience does not mean someone never feels hurt, disappointed, or afraid. A resilient person can experience difficult emotions but still find a way to move forward. They do not deny the difficulty. They develop the ability to adapt.
So resilience is not about pretending everything is okay.
Exactly, it is about saying, this situation is difficult but I can find a way through it.
That mindset seems very different from simply trying to stay positive.
Yes, sometimes people misunderstand positivity. They think being positive means always looking on the bright side and ignoring negative realities. But genuine optimism is different. It means recognizing difficulties while believing that improvement is possible.
I think one reason some people struggle during difficult times is because they believe their current situation represents their entire future.
That is a very common psychological pattern. When people experience failure or disappointment, they may think, this always happens to me, or things will never get better.
But one difficult moment does not define an entire life.
Exactly, a setback is an event, not an identity.
That distinction is powerful.
Yes, for example, failing an exam does not mean someone is incapable of learning. Losing a job does not mean someone has no value. Making a mistake does not mean someone is a failure.
The meaning we attach to events can influence how we recover from them.
Exactly.
Another important part of resilience is having supportive relationships.
Absolutely. People sometimes imagine resilience as a completely individual quality, as if strong people handle everything alone. But research suggests that connection with others is one of the strongest sources of emotional strength.
That makes sense. When people go through difficult experiences, being understood can make the situation feel less overwhelming.
Yes, sometimes we do not need someone to solve the problem. We need someone who reminds us that we are not facing it alone.
This connects back to our previous conversation about communication.
Exactly. Good conversations are not only enjoyable, they can also help people recover during difficult periods.
I also think resilience is connected to the way people view control. Some people spend a lot of energy worrying about things they cannot change,
Yes, that can create a feeling of helplessness.
while others focus their energy on the areas where they do have influence.
Exactly, they ask, what can I do next? Rather than only thinking about what went wrong.
That does not mean they ignore unfair situations.
Right, it means they recognize that their energy is limited, and they choose where to invest it.
This idea can be applied to many areas of life. Imagine someone learning a new language. They might become frustrated because progress feels slow.
Yes, language learning is actually a great example because improvement is often invisible at first.
Someone may study for weeks and feel like they are not improving.
But if they continue, they eventually realize they understand more than before.
So patience becomes part of the process.
Exactly, growth often happens quietly before it becomes obvious.
That reminds me of another important aspect of happiness, the ability to delay immediate satisfaction.
Yes, humans naturally want quick rewards. We prefer results we can see immediately.
But many meaningful things require time.
Exactly. Building relationships, developing skills, improving health, and creating a meaningful career are all long-term processes.
Someone who only focuses on immediate comfort may miss opportunities for deeper satisfaction.
Right, sometimes temporary difficulty creates long-term happiness.
This seems like a contradiction. We usually think happiness means feeling good, but sometimes the path toward happiness involves effort and discomfort.
That is one of the fascinating things about human experience. The things that create the deepest satisfaction are often not the easiest things.
Learning something difficult,
Building something meaningful,
supporting someone else.
overcoming a personal limitation.
These experiences can be challenging, but they often create a strong sense of fulfillment. So perhaps happiness is not about creating a perfect life where everything feels comfortable.
I would say it is about creating a life that feels meaningful enough to handle discomfort.
That is a very different perspective.
Yes, a meaningful life can include difficult moments, because those moments are often connected to things we deeply care about.
As we continue exploring happiness, one question remains. If happiness depends so much on our mindset, relationships, and habits, can we actually train ourselves to become happier over time?
That is the final question we will explore, whether happiness is something we discover or something we actively create.
After everything we have discussed, we arrive at one of the most interesting questions about happiness. Is happiness something we simply find, or is it something we can actively create?
I think many people spend years searching for happiness as if it is a hidden destination. They imagine that one day they will reach a certain point in life where everything finally feels perfect. But the more we understand human psychology, the more we realize that happiness is less like a place we arrive at and more like a skill we continue developing.
That is a powerful idea because it means happiness is not completely controlled by external circumstances. Of course, our environment matters. Our health, relationships, financial situation, and life experiences all influence how we feel. But we also have some ability to shape our emotional experience through our choices.
Exactly. Two people can experience the same event and respond in very different ways. One person may focus only on the disappointment, while another person may look for lessons, opportunities, or reasons to be grateful. The event itself matters, but the interpretation of that event also matters.
One area where this becomes very clear is personal growth. Many people think they will become happier when they finally become the person they want to be. They imagine happiness exists after reaching a certain level of success or improvement.
Yes, but personal growth itself can be a source of happiness. The process of learning, improving, and becoming more capable gives people a sense of progress and purpose.
So happiness is not only found in the final achievement.
Exactly, it is often found in the journey.
That explains why people can enjoy difficult activities. Someone learning an instrument, training for a competition, or studying a new language may experience frustration, but they can also experience deep satisfaction.
Because they are not only achieving a result, they are building a relationship with growth itself.
I think this is especially important for people who are learning English. Many learners become frustrated because they focus only on the final goal, speaking perfectly.
Yes, they compare themselves with fluent speakers and feel that they are not making enough progress.
But language learning is a long process.
Exactly. Every conversation, every new phrase, every small improvement is part of the journey. If learners only value the final result, they may miss the satisfaction of improvement along the way.
So the learning process itself can become meaningful.
Absolutely.
Another important part of long-term happiness is having a sense of purpose. People often feel more satisfied when they believe their actions have meaning.
Yes, purpose does not have to mean doing something famous or extraordinary. Many people find purpose through simple things. Taking care of family, helping others, creating something, developing skills, or contributing to their community.
That is interesting because society sometimes presents success as something very visible.
Right, we often see external achievements, but we do not always see the quiet forms of meaning that make people's lives fulfilling.
A person does not need to impress everyone to have a meaningful life.
Exactly.
I also think happiness requires accepting that life will always change.
Definitely, many people struggle because they try to create a permanent state of comfort. But life naturally includes different seasons.
There are times of success.
There are times of uncertainty.
There are moments of excitement.
And moments of difficulty.
So emotional balance may be more realistic than constant happiness.
I agree, a healthy life includes a full range of emotions.
That is an important point, because sometimes people feel unhappy simply because they believe they should always be happy.
Yes, modern culture sometimes creates unrealistic expectations. People see others appearing successful and positive all the time, and they assume their own struggles mean something is wrong.
But everyone experiences challenges.
Exactly. Happiness does not mean feeling positive every minute. It means having enough connection, meaning, and inner stability to continue moving forward.
If someone wanted to start improving their happiness today, where would they begin?
I would start with awareness. Before changing anything, people need to understand their current patterns. What activities give them energy? What situations regularly drain them? What relationships make them feel supported?
So the first step is understanding yourself.
Yes, then small changes can follow. Maybe spending more time with people who matter, creating healthier routines, reducing unnecessary comparison, or making time for activities that bring meaning.
The key word seems to be small.
Exactly. Happiness is usually built through small choices repeated consistently.
Looking back at our entire discussion, I think one message stands out. Happiness is not something that appears when life becomes perfect.
I agree. Happiness comes from learning how to experience life more deeply.
Through meaningful relationships.
Through personal growth.
Through gratitude.
Through resilience.
Through choosing what deserves our attention.
And through accepting both the beautiful and difficult parts of life.
Maybe the biggest misunderstanding about happiness is that people think it is about getting everything they want.
But perhaps happiness is more about appreciating what matters while continuing to grow.
That creates a much more balanced way of living.
Yes, because there will always be something we do not have. There will always be another goal, another challenge, another uncertainty.
But we can still choose how we experience the present.
Exactly.
So happiness is not a final achievement, it is a practice.
A practice of paying attention, building connections, learning from experiences, and creating a life that feels meaningful.
And like any skill, it becomes stronger when we practice it.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode. We hope this conversation helped you think about happiness in a different way.
Remember, a happier life does not require a perfect life. It requires awareness, connection, and the willingness to keep growing.
Take care of yourself, appreciate the small moments, and keep learning.
See you next time.
See you.